Welcome back, class. Hope you had a good day. Today, or in this exercise, we're going to cover our 70-741 Lab 3, creating and configuring DNS zones and records. We'll be walking through all the exercises in this, and it's going to involve installing DNS, creating primary zones, secondary zones. Remember, a primary zone is a read-write zone. In other words, you can make changes and it replicates from one DNS primary to the next. Change made somewhere else will be reflected somewhere else, and then in the other server you can make updates and changes and it will be reflected in the other zone or in the other server. A secondary zone is a read-only zone, so it's a zone that you configure where you're not going to be making changes. We're going to be working on zone delegation, doing forwarding, conditional forwarding, zone transfers, all these different things, and then looking at all the different types of DNS resource records, or A record, or quad A record, or MX records, or pointers, all these different things we're going to take a look at. So let's dive into this. And I've already connected to my London DC1 and London Server 1, or that's the two that we're going to be using. So I'm going to go ahead and just to give you an idea, they say the recommended time is 90 minutes. I don't see any way it'll take us that long, but let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into Server 1. Now we need to make sure our DC1's running. Why? That's the heart of our domain, right? So we want to make sure DC1 is up and running, and as we can see here, it is ready to log on. I don't need to log on. It's running its services. Remember, that's what servers do. They run services. We don't care about front-end applications. We care about back-end services. So I can connect. I'm going to go ahead and log in just to verify that everything's up and running. Yep, there's my server manager. Everything looks good. We're in the green all across the board. I'm going to jump over to Lund Server 2. Or I'm sorry, excuse me, Lund Server 1. We hit Control-Alt-Delete button. We're going to get logged in here. And what we're going to do first is we're going to install the DNS role on server 1, just as if this was a secondary DNS server for our network. So in our exercise 3.1, that's what we're going to do, is we're installing DNS. And just to give you an idea, multiple DNS servers can be used to provide name resolution for a zone or zones. In addition, you can use a second set of DNS servers to provide resolution for subdomains, which breaks up the name resolution workload. And then also remember, many times if you have a domain controller, that you're going to have the Active Directory domain services running on that, as well as DNS. You always need to have at least two of those on your network, because what happens if your DNS server goes down or your domain controller goes down? You lose everything. So you always want to have redundancy, not only in disks, not only in power supplies, not only in data circuits, but also in your services. So let's go ahead, server 1, and we're going to go Manage, Add Roles and Features. On the Add Roles and Features wizard, we're just simply going to click Next. Like we talked about before, everything we're doing in these labs is either role-based or feature-based. We're going to click Next. We're only managing our server 1 at this time. We click Next. And we're going to select DNS Server. We're also going to add features. We click Next. We click Next. We click Next. And we click Install. Now, once your progression is complete and your install is complete, this will be your first screenshot for step number 10. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while this installation goes on. While the installation continues, I just wanted to make a note. We're 3 labs in now to our workbook and for our different labs. I'm trying to keep each one of these videos at no more than 20 minutes. I don't want to make it too long and drawn out. I want to make it easy for you guys. I want to make it simple. This is supposed to be something we enjoy, and I want that to be reflected in this. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for a moment while I wait for my installation to complete. Okay, well, I really didn't need to pause it that last time because a few moments later my installation was done. Really didn't take very long. So um, hopefully you've got your screenshot, and we can go ahead and click close. So exercise 3.1, installing DNS, is done. That was simple. Exercise 3.2 involves creating primary and secondary zones. So on DNS original implementation, the DNS server would host either a primary or a secondary zone, or both. The primary zone provides an authoritative read-write copy of the zone, and just as we discussed just a few minutes ago, the secondary zone provides an authoritative read-only copy of the primary zone. So one's read-write, a primary is read-write, a secondary is a read-only copy of a primary zone. So we're going to jump over to our DC1, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up the DNS Manager console. Now, how do we get to that? We go to Tools, we click on DNS, and here is our DNS Manager, our console, our DNS Manager console. So our first question, what is the primary tool to manage DNS in Windows? Can we make it any simpler? Everybody, DNS Manager console. Yeah, it's that simple. So we're going to expand our forward-looking and our reverse-looking zones. And you can see we've got our reverse lookup zone for our primary subnet. And what we're going to do is we're going to select forward-looking zone. We're going to right-click and we're going to say New Zone. This is how you create your primary, secondary, and stub zones. So on the zone, we're going to go ahead on that intro, we just click right through that. On our zone type, we're going to leave the primary zone selected, and we're going to let it store, but we're going to, we're not going to let it store. Sorry about that. We're going to uncheck Store the Zone in Active Directory. So primary zone, deselect the Store the Zone in Active Directory. We're going to click Next because we're creating a zone that's not part of our Active Directory. And the zone name is going to be contoso.com, another one of the Microsoft domains. And we click Next. And on the zoned file, where we're going to create the zoned file, we're simply going to click Next. Doing dynamic updates. Ensure that the Do Not Allow Dynamic Updates radio button is selected, and as you can see it is. We're going to go ahead and click Next. And finally we're going to click Finish. And there is our new primary standard zone, not integrated with our Active Directory, because the computers that we join to our network get integrated in Active Directory, but they're not part of the contoso.com domain, right? Okay, so if you've got this displayed just the same way, take a screenshot, and that's your step number 11. Now, this is on LUN DC1. We're going to jump over to LUN Server 1. On LUN Server 1, I'm going to go to Tools. I'm going to go to DNS. I'm going to select the server name. I'm going to expand the little caret beside the server name. I'm going to select Reverse, and I'm going to select Forward. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click Forward Lookup Zone and say New Zone. On the wizard page, I'm going to click Next. On the zone type, we're going to create a secondary zone. We're going to click Next. We're going to type in contoso.com again. and it says, hey, what is the master DNS server that hosts the primary zone? Well, that's our 172.16.0.10, right? Go ahead and type that in and press enter, and you can see it successfully contacted it. Go ahead and click next, and then finish. And there is our Contoso zone. You can go ahead and take another screenshot showing that Contoso.com zone being successfully created on LUN server 1. That's your step 9 in this particular exercise. Okay, so now we're going to create a standard reverse lookup primary zone. We're going to jump back over to DC1. I'm going to select reverse lookup zone. I'm going to right click reverse lookup zone and say new zone. On the wizard screen, I'm going to click next. On the zone type, I'm going to click next. On the Active Directory zone replication scope, we click next. On the reverse lookup zone name page, we click next, because we're going to use IP. It's going to be IPv4. For our network ID, we're going to specify a different network than the one that we currently use for our systems. It's going to be 172.16.10, different network. We click, and then here's what we're going to say. Once I've typed that in, look at the bottom half of your screen, at the bottom half of that box where it says reverse lookup zone name. That's the actual name of the zone. So, question number 2. What is the reverse lookup zone name? Type what you see grayed out there, 10.16.172.in.adder.arba. Once you've got that filled in, we go ahead and click next. On dynamic updates, we're going to allow the setting just the way it is. We click next, and we click finish. Now that you've created that secondary zone, go ahead and take another screenshot, and that goes into step 9. And we have now completed exercise 3.2. So, moving on to 3.3, creating an Active Directory integrated zone. So, understand that our DNS today can be stored in and replicated with Active Directory as an Active Directory integrated zone. By using these Active Directory integrated zones, DNS follows what's called a multi-master model, where each server enables DNS servers to have an authoritative read-write copy of the DNS zone. When a change is made on one DNS server, it's replicated to the other DNS servers, so everything stays uniform. This should take us about 5 minutes, tops. On DC1, we're going to jump back over to DC1. Remember, we've been jumping back and forth here. We're going to right-click forward lookup zones, and we're going to say new zone. Wizard page, next. Primary zone is selected. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click next. On the Active Directory replication scope, we're going to click next. For the zone name, we're going to type in Fabricam, FABRIKAM.com, Fabricam. We're going to click next. On the dynamic update page, we're going to allow only secure dynamic updates, selected. Answer the following question before we move on. What is needed to perform secure dynamic updates? What does the comment below the bullet, the radio button, say? This option is available only for yes. What is needed to perform secure dynamic updates is an Active Directory integrated zone. Question number 3. Once you've answered that, go ahead and click next and finish. Now we've created an additional Active Directory integrated zone. That is your next screenshot. Paste it into step number 8. And exercise 3.3 is done. I don't think it even took us 3 minutes. Moving on to exercise 3.4, configuring zone delegation. So what is zone delegation? A DNS subdomain is a child domain that is part of a parent domain and has the same domain suffix as the parent domain. Subdomains allow you to assign unique names to be used by a chosen department, subsidiary, function, or service within the organization. However, you can create a different zone for the subdomain, which can be stored on another server. As a result, you can increase performance for the DNS zones as the traffic is delegated to multiple servers. So let's get into it. Should take us a few minutes. We're still on DC1. You can see that right here. We know we're on DC1. We're going to select the fabricam.com zone domain. We're going to right click on it and select New Delegation. On the wizard page, we're going to click Next. And in the delegated domain text box, you're going to type in support. Once we've typed that in, we can see our new fully qualified domain name that's going to be associated. We click Next. On the name servers page, we're going to click Add. And what we're going to do is we're going to type in lun-server1 or lun-srv1-.adatum.com. When we do that, and when we click resolve, you're going to get a red X. We're going to ignore that. So lun-svr1.adatum.com. I click resolve. Doesn't say, well, we haven't created it over in server 1 yet. That's why we got the red X. So we go ahead and we're going to click OK. And we click Next. And we click Finish. So now we can see what we just created here. Go ahead and take another screenshot and paste it into step 7 in this exercise. We're going to move over to server 1. And I'm going to right click forward lookup zones. And I'm going to say New Zone, Wizard Next, Zone Type, leave it selected as primary, click Next. And for the zone name, type in support.fabricam.com. Click Next. Leave the zone file create just the way it is. We click Next. On the dynamic updates page, we leave it the way it is. We click Next. And we click Finish. And there it is. Take a screenshot of this same page, and that goes in step number 15, and we're done with 3.4. We're flying through these exercises. I hope you're getting this. I know maybe I've done this before, and maybe I'm going a little bit faster than what you might. Take your time, pause the video, take it as it comes. 3.5 is configuring forward and conditional forwarding zones. So what I'm going to do is, we still have a little bit of time in this exercise, and we're pushing 19 minutes on this video. So I'm going to stop the video at this point, and we'll pick it up with part 2. And part 2 will be for lab 3, and we'll begin at exercise 3.5. See you in a few moments.